Russian police have released this video they shot in what can be described as a house of horrors. They say those aren't dolls strewn about the apartment, but actual remains of people a historian had dug up and dressed in women's clothing and then put on display. Police say they found 29 mummified remains, most of which were in the apartment the suspect shares with his parents. They were dressed in bright dresses and headscarves, their hands and faces wrapped in what appears to be cloth. Some of the remains are thought to have been stolen from this cemetery. Police released these booking photos of the suspect, who has been identified as a top local expert on cemeteries. Authorities are now working to identify all of the remains they've found. It's not clear yet what specific charges the suspect may face. Ed Donahue, The Associated Press.
Picture this. You step into a quiet Russian apartment. It's cluttered, dusty, filled with books stacked to the ceiling. And then you see them. Dozens of life-size dolls, propped up on couches, sitting around tables, even tucked into beds. But take a closer look, and the truth hits you like a punch to the gut. They're not dolls. They're real human corpses, mummified little girls that had been dug up from graves and rescued by the man who lived here. His name? Anatoly Moskvin. A brilliant linguist, a historian, a man fluent in over a dozen languages. But behind closed doors, he was hiding one of the most twisted secrets in modern history. So what drives a man like this to dig up the dead and treat them like daughters? You're about to find out. And trust me, this story only gets more disturbing from here. Anatoly Yuryevich Moskvin is a Russian former linguist, philologist, and historian who was arrested in 2011 after the mummified bodies of 29 women and young girls between the ages of 3 and 29 were discovered in his apartment in Nizhny Novgorod. After exhuming the bodies from local cemeteries, Moskvin mummified the bodies himself before dressing and posing them around his home. Moskvin's parents, who shared the apartment with him, knew of the mummies but mistook them for large dolls. A psychiatric evaluation determined that Moskvin had a form of paranoid schizophrenia. In May 2012, he was sentenced to court-ordered psychiatric evaluation and has since been held in a psychiatric hospital. Authorities called the case exceptional and unparalleled in modern forensic history. Personal life and education. Anatoly Moskvin was born in the city of Gorky in Soviet Russia, now known as Nizhny Novgorod. As a child, Moskvin often wandered through cemeteries with friends, especially the Krasnaya Etna cemetery. In one incident, he claimed he was forced to kiss the face of a deceased girl during a funeral procession, an experience that left a lasting impression on him. He graduated from the philological faculty of Moscow State University, and later became well known in academic circles. His academic focus included Celtic history and folklore, linguistics, and languages. Moskvin maintained a vast personal library of over 60,000 books and documents, and had a fascination with cemeteries, burial customs, death, and the occult. He also kept an extensive doll collection. Moskvin lived a reclusive life, never married or dated, and lived with his parents well into adulthood. He did not drink or smoke. In 2016, he was reported to have planned a marriage with a 25-year-old woman who had attended his trial. Career. Moskvin was a former lecturer in Celtic studies at Nizhny Novgorod Linguistic University and had previously worked at the Institute of Foreign Languages. A polyglot who spoke 13 languages, Moskvin authored numerous books, academic papers, and translations. He also worked as a journalist and contributed regularly to local publications. Referring to himself as a necropolist, he was considered an expert on cemeteries in the Nizhny Novgorod region. In 2005, he was commissioned to document and summarize the graves in more than 700 cemeteries across the region. Over 2 years, he claimed to have visited 752 cemeteries on foot, walking up to 30 kilometers a day. During his fieldwork, he often slept in haystacks, abandoned buildings, and even inside coffins. Police occasionally questioned him, but he avoided arrest by presenting his academic credentials. Though unpublished, his cemetery catalog was described by colleagues as invaluable. He wrote a series of articles on local cemeteries between 2006 and 2010, and frequently contributed to newspapers. Despite some eccentric behavior, those who worked with him saw no signs of criminal activity. Arrest and criminal proceedings. Moskvin was arrested on November 2, 2011, during an investigation into widespread grave desecrations. Authorities found 26 mummified bodies in his apartment and garage, although initial reports claimed 29. Video footage showed the bodies seated on shelves and sofas, surrounded by books and household clutter. Police suspected Moskvin of desecrating up to 150 graves after discovering nameplates, cemetery maps, and instructions for body preparation. A cache of photos and videos of open graves was also found. Most of the bodies were taken from cemeteries in the local region, though some may have come from as far as Moscow. Moskvin cooperated with investigators, stating that he had been creating the dolls over a 10-year period. His parents, who were often away, claimed they had no idea the dolls were human remains. He was charged with desecration of graves and dead bodies, an offense punishable by up to 5 years in prison. An initial accusation of targeting Muslim graves as a hate crime was later dropped. A psychiatric assessment concluded he had paranoid schizophrenia. In May 2012, the court declared him unfit to stand trial and assigned him to psychiatric care. His detention was reviewed and extended multiple times, with the court consistently determining that he remained unfit for release. In 2018, doctors suggested he could be released for outpatient treatment, but a later assessment reversed this decision. What was his motive? Following his arrest, Moskvin stated he felt deep sympathy for deceased children and believed they could be brought back to life through science or black magic. Drawing on his research into Celtic and Siberian traditions, Moskvin adopted the belief that sleeping on graves enabled spiritual communication. He would often search obituaries for recently deceased children and sleep on their graves to determine if the spirit desired to be rescued. As he aged, the physical act of sleeping in cemeteries became painful, so he began exhuming the bodies to bring them home, believing the spirits would be more receptive in a warm, safe environment. To preserve the corpses, Moskvin used salt and baking soda to dry them, later retrieving the mummified remains and bringing them home. He constructed dolls by wrapping limbs in cloth, filling the bodies with rags, and placing wax masks over the faces, which he painted with nail polish. He dressed them in children's clothing and wigs, hoping to create surrogate bodies that could one day be animated. Moskvin admitted to knowing he was breaking the law, but believed that answering the children's spiritual calls was more important. He also confessed to a deep desire to have children of his own, particularly a daughter. After a failed adoption attempt, he viewed the mummified children as the family he never had. He denied any sexual motive, instead claiming he saw the corpses as his children. He talked to them, celebrated birthdays, sang to them, and watched cartoons together, attempting to create a nurturing environment for their spirits. Anatoly Moskvin wasn't your typical criminal. He wasn't violent. He didn't steal for profit. He didn't kill. But what he did was something far more disturbing. He blurred the line between grief and obsession, genius and madness. To this day, he remains locked away in a psychiatric facility. No trial, no sentence, just endless evaluation and a room full of silence. He called them his daughters. He celebrated their birthdays. He truly believed he was saving them. But at what point does sorrow become horror? Let me know what you think in the comments. Was this the act of a broken mind or something far more sinister hiding behind intellect? Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay safe, and remember, not every monster looks like one monster.